In this second lesson on melodic minor, I'm going to talk a bit about how you can use the melodic minor scale to play on dominants that don't resolve. So just to explain that, what I mean with the dominant that's resolving is if you have this B flat 7, when it resolves, B flat is the dominant in the key of E flat, so it's going to resolve to an E flat chord, like this, or E flat minor. But very often in songs you're going to find that you're going to have dominants that move somewhere else. They don't resolve to a 1 chord like that, so they're going to go to other places. And the Lydian Dominant scale, which is a mode of the melodic minor, is a very useful scale for that. So if I have a B flat 7 and it's not resolving to E flat, then there's a pretty good chance that I can actually get away with using the Lydian Dominant scale to play on it. And also I can use that for the voicings I choose to play when I'm coping. Okay, so Lydian Dominant. So we're talking about dominants that have no alterations. So that means that they have a natural 13, sharp 11, and a 9, an unanswered 9. And the scale that fits on it is, well, it's the 4th degree of a melodic minor scale, so B flat is the 4th degree in F melodic minor. So that means that you can use a scale like this on it. And I'm just going to show a few examples on how you can use it in some harmonical contexts. And it's a useful sound anyway to use for that. And actually it fits in quite a lot of contexts. And it's also going to give you a few new progressions maybe, because most of the lessons that I've done until now, and a lot of the examples that you see in jazz lessons in most places, are on 2-5-1, so they're just basic cadences. But harmony is of course a lot more complex than just your basic subdominant, dominant, tonic movement all the time. So there are a few other progressions, and some of those are going to come by in this lesson. So let's do some examples. The first example is using the B flat 7 as a sort of 4 minor chord. So in the key of C, the 4th degree is F, and you can probably tell that if I have this chord for my B flat, then it's very close to being an F minor 6. And that's sort of how it works here. So, and this is something that you'll find quite often, a progression where it's like F major 7, B flat 7, C major. And the whole 4 minor thing is probably something that I should do a whole lesson on, because there are quite a few different ways to do that, and it's a very nice thing to sort of throw in there. You can even do that while soloing and change stuff by borrowing chords from minor. So that's something for another lesson. Let's just try and play the line that fits with this. The second example, which is also something that you can use quite a lot, you come across it a lot, but you can also just sort of throw it in there in an improvisation yourself. If you have a cadence, in this case it's a cadence in the key of A, then what I'm using here is that the E7 and the A7, the E7 and the B flat 7 share the same 3rd and 7th. So a basic E7 is this, basic B flat 7 is this. So what you can do, instead of playing an E7, you can play B flat 7. So you get this progression. And you can do that while soloing too, and then you will get something like this. Another example where you will find a dominant with a sharp 11 is when you have a song where the fourth chord is turned into a dominant. This happens in some standards. I think Tenderly has one, and Sudanso Samba, and a few other ones. So basically, I think it's just used to vary the sound a bit, so you get something like. And a line on that will be something like this. The next example is in the case of a major scale, if you have a dominant on the flat 6 degree, so in the case of B flat 7 in the key of D major. So you have a D major and then you get a B flat 7 and it resolves back to D major. I don't know too many songs that actually does that. The Star Trek theme has it, and Out of Nowhere does it too. And I think the theoretical explanation that I've had for this is something about a double diminished sharp 4 something, so that's all fairly complicated. I guess to me the fact that it has the sharp 4 of the key and wants to resolve that to the 5th of the key also sort of has a little bit that sharp 4 kind of sound to it for me. But yeah, that's a little bit vague. So the progression, let's stay with that, is this. And a line on that would be something like. The last example is one of the examples that actually comes along quite often. Because in a lot of standards, and a lot of songs in general, you have the dominant of the dominant in the chord progression. So in this case, I've sort of shortened it a bit, because usually it's for a longer period of time on a jazz standard, but I made this progression, so it's like B flat 7 and then a cadence. And this is a place where you really often will hear this sort of Lydian Dominant sound with a flat 5 or a sharp 11 really present. And if I play a line on that, that's going to be something like. So that was a few examples of how you can use the Lydian Dominant scale on dominants that don't resolve. I guess if you really want to check out how these different dominants work in a context, then you should probably learn some songs where they're in, rather than just checking out my examples, because you get a much better overview and you get a much better picture of how they sound and how they work if you know them in a few songs. But I guess that goes for a lot of things. In any case, thank you for watching. I hope that you can use the stuff that I talked about here. If you like the lesson, then feel free to subscribe to my channel. And if you have any comments or any suggestions for topics for lessons, then feel free to leave a comment on the video or connect with me on Google Plus or Facebook or Twitter and let me know there. And thank you for watching.